welcome to this, our first MFB news of 2025. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and a really, really fantastic new year, and everything's got off to a really good start for you. My start to the year has been quite interesting. We woke up on New Year's Day, our basement had flooded. The other day I managed to cut 2 of my fingers with a kitchen knife. So it hasn't been the best start, but I'm figuring things happen in threes. I've got one more to go and then I'm done for 2025. So I'm getting it out of the way nice and early. Now, in terms of what we're going to cover off for you today, it's going to be a really quick update actually. There hasn't been a huge amount of news. Obviously, everyone's just kind of getting back to work after Christmas break. But we're going to be our usual rundown on what's been happening with interest rates, swap rates, lender criteria changes, and then we're going to have a little bit of a think about what to expect in the coming 12 months. So let's get the bad news out of the way. It's not looking quite as rosy for swap rates as it was when I left you before Christmas. So so 2-year swap rates as of last night are 4.23%, 1 month ago 4.07%, and 1 year ago 4.18%. So basically we're actually in a worse position we were this time last year on 2-year swap rates, which is very, very frustrating. In terms of 5-year swap rates, very similar story, I'm afraid. So 4.03 on 5 years. Currently, 1 month ago 3.8, and 1 year ago 3.59. So like I say, actually at the moment things aren't looking quite as wonderful as they were before I broke up for Christmas break, where 5-year swap rates were, from memory, at about 3.8%. They're actually going down. Now actually things do take a while to kind of settle back down once we come back from Christmas break, so it could be that actually we see things naturally ease off again. There's always lots of stuff in the ether in terms of predictions for things like inflation, and we'll come on to that in a moment. But yeah, I think it's fair to say that not how we wanted to start the new year by any stretch of the imagination. Now, in terms of how this has been impacting lender pricing, so when I saw that swap rates have been floating back up, I did think, oh goodness, here we go. We're going to be coming back to a wave of lender pricing increases. But actually what's been interesting is that from the pricing changes that we've seen, and there haven't been that many so far this year, but actually they've been downwards. Why is that? So first of all, obviously before Christmas rates had come down, not every lender would have reacted. So these guys would have been kind of repricing. Lenders aren't always able to, I should say, reprice it instantly. So it could be that these guys were reacting to the lower cost of funds. They've brought out new rates and they're going to have to increase them. It could be that these lenders were, charging higher rates, higher margins than they needed to, and they've kind of brought things down a bit to make themselves more competitive. There's going to be lots of reasons for this, but fundamentally lenders' cost of funds has increased. So we need to kind of just be mindful of that. So for those of you who are coming back to January and thinking, right, I'm going to wait for rates to come down, at the moment they're actually going in the wrong direction. So you might just want to have a little think about maybe doing things sooner rather than later. In terms of expectations for rates and what they're going to do with regards to fixed rates, my belief is going to be that actually we're going to see swap rates soften again over the next couple of weeks, not by much, but by a little bit. So let's just wait and see. There's going to be lots of data coming out in the next few weeks with regards to inflation information, and again we'll come on to that in a moment. But I think realistically, the swap rates are higher than we wanted them to be. Definitely, they've gone up month on month, which is not great. However, how it's filtering through to lender pricing changes, we'll know a lot more next week. I think it's just kind of interesting to hear what people are expecting to happen this year. And so what I've done is I've been doing a fair amount of research, looking across various kind of schools of thought, essentially, for what we can expect to see in 2025. So the first thing is, and it's a 4% year, interestingly. So house prices, the expectation is that they're going to increase by around 4% this year. I think it's still going to be very much a buyer's market, because estate agents have a decade high level of properties for sale versus buyers. So actually it's still going to be very much a buyer's market, but we are still expecting, in spite of that, a 4% increase on property prices this year. So something worth bearing in mind if you're thinking about investing. If you're going to buy a property in December of this year, it's likely to cost you 4% more than it would have done if you bought it in January. So just to keep that in mind. In terms of rents, again, 4% is the figure in terms of growth. So we're expecting, or we know for a fact, that actually the demand is slowing for rental properties. We are going to see the kind of pace of letting start to ease off, and it's been on a downward trajectory for the last sort of 12 months or more. However, demand is still outstripping supply, so that's going to underpin things. So, looking across the various reports from all the experts in this field, rental increase 4% this year. Now, in terms of base rate, again, expectation is that it will have reached 4% by the end of 2025. 2025, which is very much what we've been saying probably for the last sort of 3 months in 2024. So this is not news, or new news, should I say. So again, when you're thinking about what kind of rates you're going to take this year, definitely worth thinking about trackers. The problem with trackers is at the moment, if you were going to be able to take a fixed rate at around 5%, your tracker's going to be more like 5.8. So you just need to kind of think about how far you think base rate will come down over, say, 2 years, but the rate at which it's going to come down as well. And just to be clear, despite what a lot of people seem to believe, just because you're taking a tracker rate or a variable rate mortgage, it doesn't necessarily mean that it comes without any early repayment charges. So just keep that in mind. In terms of kind of inflation, and this is an interesting one. So the expectation is that CPI, so Consumer Price Index, is going to be at 2.6% for December. So it won't have moved, but it would have increased to up to 3.2% by April. And this is going to be driven largely by, first of all, VAT being added to private school fees. My son's at private school, so I'm obviously really cheesed off about that. But also businesses are now going to have to start passing on their higher tax burden. So think about the national insurance as an example increase to consumers. So the expectation is that actually inflation is going to increase up to 3.2% by April, and it's going to stay there until probably September, and that's when the labour cost surge that you see at the start of the year is going to start to kind of fade away. So actually this could be part of the reason why we're seeing swap rates come up a little bit, because actually we're expecting inflation to be above what was previously thought. Which means that actually, while we're still expecting 3 base rate cuts throughout the year, it could be that actually there's a delay to when they will happen throughout the year. So that's really what's been happening in terms of expectations for 2025. Not all doom and gloom for landlords by any stretch of the imagination. 4% increase on your property values, 4% increase on your rents is actually something to be celebrated. But it still means that actually what we can see here is there's still a lot of turmoil, particularly in relation to what's going to be happening with interest rates, specifically fixed rates. And that's it for this week. Like I said, it's going to be a short, snappy one just to kind of kick things off in 2025. We're back to our normal format next week, where we kind of do all the lender pricing changes. But really, as I said, this week there hasn't been too much to report. So for now, I'm going to leave you to have a lovely, lovely week and weekend. Keep warm. It is absolutely bitter this morning. I know that a lot of parts of the country have had snow. We've avoided it thus far, but I think we might be getting a bit of it today. So do travel safely, keep warm, and I'll see you again same time next week.